you kiss my lips so tenderly, you turn me on, girl. We'd always get it on and kept it going on so strong, girl. Now you say to me something I can't believe. The feeling's gone. I got to have ya every morning. I wanna love you every evening. I wanna be with you, girl, every minute of the day. Why won't you be mine? Why won't you be mine? The years have come and passed now, baby, and still you like to make me cry. My love for you just keeps on burning. A love like ours could never die. 'Cause when you kiss my lips so tenderly, you turn me on, girl. We always get it on and keep it going on so strong, girl. And now you said to me something I can't believe. The feeling's gone. I got to have you every morning. I gotta love you every evening. I wanna be with you, girl, every minute of the day. Why won't you be mine? Why won't you be mine? Why won't you be mine? Porque a mí me gusta gozar con mi ñamita, que yo no me quiero morir, muchachita. Why won't you be mine? Why won't you be mine? Touch your face, feel your warm embrace. Baby, I can't hide the love I feel inside. Burning just from you, woman, just for you. Something in your heart, tearing me apart, all apart from you. If you gotta go, then you gotta go. Lord, what can I say to take her tears away? Makes everything I do, especially for you. Soon you will be gone, then I can't go on. Lord, what can I do? I'm hurting, baby, I'm hurting so. Don't you know I'm gonna make it? All right, can't you feel it? Gotta touch your face, feel your warm embrace. Just to see your smile makes my life worthwhile. Now the time is gone, so I can't go on. Since you closed the door, I just can't go on. Lord, what can I do? Yeah! All right, can't you feel it, baby? I'm hurting, baby, I'm hurting so. Don't you know I'm gonna make it? Don't you know I'm gonna make it without your love? Oh, baby, don't you know I'm gonna make it? All right. acelero con la ilusión y sigo buscando aquí y allá hasta que yo te llegue a encontrar. La gente bailando, todos vacilando, pero yo pensando en volverte a ver. Sin tu amor, sin que tú me des tu corazón, andarás con otros por ahí, te harán olvidarte de mí. La gente bailando, todos vacilando, pero yo pensando en volverte a ver. Sin tu amor, sin que tú me des tu corazón, andarás con otros por ahí, te harán olvidarte de mí. La gente bailando, todos vacilando, pero yo pensando en volverte a ver. con esos ojos tan verdes y esa boca tan linda, me engañaste muchas veces. Me dijiste que tú estabas en casa de la vecina, pero yo me di de cuenta que tú andabas bien metida en otra tremenda fiesta. Olvídate de mi negra. A las 6 de la mañana a esta casa no entras más que va.
No puedo más, contigo no puedo más.
No me vengas con embuste, que ya no me engañas más. Echa pa' allá.
No puedo más, contigo no puedo más.
¡No!
Contigo no puedo más.
Oye, mujer mentirosa,
Contigo no puedo más.
yo voy a decirte esta cosa.
Contigo no puedo más.
Que naciste sin corazón en el pecho.
Contigo no puedo más.
Me dijiste que estabas en casa de la vecina.
Contigo no puedo más.
Ay, con ese cuento no me engaño otra vez.
Contigo no puedo más.
Echa pa' allá, embustera.
Contigo no puedo más.
No quiero, pero que no quiero, pero que no quiero, no quiero nada.
Contigo no puedo más. No te aguanto ni una más. Por ahí.
Díselo, papiro. ¡Anda! ¡Anda! Si puedes. Y si no puedes, apártate.
No puedo más. Contigo no puedo más.
Vete, embustera.
Contigo no puedo más.
Ay, no quiero, contigo nada.
Contigo no puedo más.
Porque tú no sirves para nada que va.
Contigo no puedo más.
Me dijiste que estabas en casa de la vecina.
Contigo no puedo más.
Olvídate ya de mi negrona.
Contigo no puedo más.
No puedo más, no puedo más, no puedo más.
Contigo no puedo más.
A esta casa no entra más a las 6.
Contigo no puedo más.
¿Qué va? Echa pa' allá.
Contigo no puedo más.
No quiero.
Contigo no puedo más. Contigo no puedo más.
Comienza Roy,
Contigo no puedo más.
pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
Cambio si le pille llevo, la comía pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
La comía cambio si le, la comía pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
Cambio si le pille llevo, la comía pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
La comía pachango, la comía pachango.
Harina,
Bombo,
harina,
quimbombo,
harina,
amala,
harina,
aguda,
harina,
amala,
harina,
quimbombo,
harina,
aguda,
harina,
amala,
harina,
boquete,
harina,
amala,
harina,
quimbombo.
harina.
Cambio si le.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
Cambio si le pille llevo, la comía pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
Cambio si le pille llevo, cambio si le pachango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
La comía pachango, cambio si le pichango.
Harina con quimbombo, la comía pachango.
Cambio si le pille llevo, cambio si le pichango.
Harina,
Bombo,
harina.
bombo.
Can you feel it? Does it move you?
más bata. Oye, yo no espero más, me voy pa' la fiesta de él y ya. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más, yo quiero más.
Que vengan los soneros que quieran guarachar. A todos los invito, la salsa va a comenzar. Que venga Tito Puente, Caco con su timbal. Somos 7 potencias y vamos a acabar.
La vida es muy corta.
Las buenas vibras te alivianarán. Si las vibras son negativas, púrgalas con sus lavativas. Córrelas, huye muy recio. No hay que ser tan mala vibra y necio. Come on, come on. Feel it, feel it. Vibra muy recio. Como hombre sabrás que el mono con seda ahí se queda. Lo más importante eres tú, que la vibra que lances en paz no sea tan fugaz, solo así triunfarás. Buenas vibras no tienen precio, te vuelves más grueso. Come on, come on. Feel it, feel it. Vibra muy recio. Y estoy medio calaca, masco chicles y menta y las chavas me fascinan. Yo les lanzo la buena vibra, luego las ligo, voltean a verme y ahí les digo, mi amor, vibra muy recio. Yeah. ¿Sientes las vibras? Ay, yo también. La gente y ahí se queda. Poco a poco te empieza a voltear, te hace pesado, ya te amolaste. Tus vibras, lo juro, son peor que el humo de mi puro. Es igual que tener el aliento inseguro. Come on, vibra muy recio. Come on, come on. It's such a sweet sensation. Feel it.
Hello? Wait, is this on? Can you hear me? First of all, thank you so much for coming in the rain. I know it paralyzes most of Miami, so we all really appreciate you guys coming out. And I just want to start by thanking the team at Dále, Steve and Benton, and Francesca from LALO Spirits from keeping us hydrated and with these tasty cocktails. I also want to start with a land acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge the original stewards of this land, the Tequesta, Calusa, Seminole, and Miccosukee tribes. And with that, we will start with what happened next, which was the Spanish coming to Florida, right? So I started this talk, I wanted to call this talk LatinX art in Miami because I have a problem with the word Hispanic. And I'm gonna read to you something that one of these panelists told me after I present them, but I just wanted to start with that because I think it's ironic. In 1988, Ronald Reagan actually put into law Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's 40 years almost, and we're still debating the term. But if you think about it, the word Hispanic is as colonial as it gets. It comes from Hispania, which is it's a Latin term to describe the Iberian Peninsula. It's what the Roman Empire called Spain, Portugal, and the whole peninsula. So really to call an entire population, an entire continent of people that speak so many languages, I mean, just indigenous languages in Brazil, by the way, are 186 languages, indigenous languages. We have Brazil with its how many? I forgot. It's like the population, but Brazil. Then we have Haiti with Creole. I mean, you're taking an entire, all these cultures and you're whitewashing them or Eurowashing them with the word Hispanic. So I just wanted to start by saying, I do not want to use that term. And why am I using the term Latinx, which also can be problematic, but to me, for many reasons, it sounds more inclusive. It's still Latin, right? It's still Latin America. That's still a problem. But it's gender neutral. And the X in it to me, and I get this from this book that I'm going to be referring to so much, you're going to get sick of me, LatinX art. I'll tell you about the author later. She talks about it as sort of like the X being a project, something fluid, an intersection. And I think it does give room for that intersection of all the nationalities, the race, class, and everything that Latin America and all Spanish-speaking people in this country or non-Spanish speaking people of Latin American descent. And I know that's a mouthful and that's a lot to think about, but really that's how complicated this issue of identity actually is. And if it's complicated as an issue of what we're naming this month, when you get down to something like the art world, it becomes even more complicated. Only 2% of all philanthropy in the arts goes to Latinx art in the United States. And yet 20% of this country identifies as Latinx. In Miami, it's 72%, okay? New York is 19, LA is 49. So of a country with 20% people, for 2% of the funding, and don't even get me started on what women get out of that 2%, it's a problem. But I don't want to start with a negative note. I will tell you a positive note. The Ford and Getty and another grant, there is a $5 million grant that came into effect a couple years ago, and it's a curatorial grant for Latinx art. Of that grant, you have positions like Carmen Ramos, who is now the chief curator at the National Gallery in Washington. She went to graduate school with me. She's amazing. And she spearheaded not only the acquisition of 40 new works in August of Latinx artists for the National, but they also hired the first Latinx curator at the National Gallery. We have a Latinx, someone who identifies as Latinx at the PAM. There is the next Whitney Biannual is also spearheaded by a Latinx woman. So, we're making headway, and it's very exciting. But I'm going to talk about different parts of the industry, including the artists themselves, and that's why I want to introduce you now to two artists who are here. This is Diana Eusebio. And I'm going to let her quickly just, I want you to just quickly tell me what you think about the term and just a little bit about you and your practice.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Is this working? I think so, yeah? Okay, great,
know,
great,
so-
great. So my name is Diana Eusebio, and I'm a textile artist. I work primarily in natural dyes, so I'm looking at Afro-Caribbean and indigenous practices from Latin America around textiles and making color from plants. What I think about the term, I also find it problematic to say Hispanic. I think then Latinx also dives into like Afro-Latinx and having that inclusivity as well. That's important conversation to have around the different, I don't know, boxes that we make here in America to put us in. But yeah, what else did I have to say?
It was just an introduction. We're gonna
Okay,
dig deeper
cool.
into your
We'll
work
get
too.
into
And
it.
yeah. And then I'm gonna
Okay.
introduce. I'm just start with the artist with Edison Peñafiel, who I just met tonight, and he's from Ecuador, and so am I. And that's rare. But I also was very interested in talking to you because I've admired your work for a long time, and I'm going to let you talk about it more. But your work deals a lot with migration, and I think right now that's another very hot topic in this country where presidential candidates have all things to say about different immigrant groups. But I'm going to read to you guys because this is something I wanted to talk about the whole term, but then I got an email from him and it was perfect. So I'm going to read this to you. He said, for this panel, I'm really interested in exploring how these terms like Latinx are shaping or maybe misrepresenting us. How can we challenge these labels and keep our unique identities front and center? The term Latinx and how just doesn't sit right with me, even though I fall into the category. It feels like an Anglo take on our identity that doesn't fit. The way it's pronounced, Latinx, doesn't sound natural in Spanish. Sounds like a Marvel Latino superhero. It became clear that they were trying to lump us into one category, which felt way off. It was like the same old stereotype that the U.S. has had about Latin America forever. Sombrero, bigote, y alpargatas. So now I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit.
Okay. Hi, I'm Edison Peñafiel. As Veronica said, my work deals with migration, with displacement. So I recreate scenes, immersive scenes with video animation of characters trudging or navigating spaces perpetually. So they're trapped in these situations. In a way, it's trying to deal with the repetition of history. So it doesn't focus on specifics, but it's the general idea of displacement, like from a global perspective. Yeah.
I didn't introduce myself. My name is Veronica Pesantes, and I am an art educator. I also write, and I started something called Miami Art Hang in April to try to make the art world more inclusive and more approachable to people. So now I'm going to start with Carolina Drake. Carolina is an art journalist. She writes for, I only met her tonight. I have read her work forever. She writes for many, many publications she's going to tell you about. She's an incredible writer. I love her work because not only does she really talk about our local art scene, but she also has a very deep social justice commitment to her writing. So, and we're going to drop everyone's Instagram handles later so we can all follow each other. And I just want to say one thing about, so what I'm talking about right now about this whole situation with Latinx art being more inclusive into American art and all these things, there's many institutions that guide that, right? There's the museums, there's the auction houses, there's galleries, and then there's the media, right? And the media is another part of the equation that has been predominantly white. If you look at the main critics for the New York Times, Holland Cotter, I mean, they're all mainly white men. We are lucky in Miami because not only do we have an extraordinary amount of Latin American and Latinx artists, we also have incredible writers and journalists. So I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, I amazing writers in this community that I follow and love, and it's something I think that's interesting about us. A lot of us are freelancers, so it's very hard to just get a staff job. If we had a staff job, we'd probably be able to just pitch more ideas, get through the editors faster, to get more stories about Miami, about artists of color, into, you know, these bigger, more national outlets. And I don't know how important that is. I think to me, from a social justice perspective, who controls the narrative if there's only one type of critic or one type of journalist? So I think the writers who are here in Miami, I think we need to talk to each other more. And same thing with artists. I think we all need to be just talking to each other more. So that's why I'm happy to be here.
And I agree. I think we all need to be having more of these conversations. Arlene Davila is the writer. Steve is going to order this book so you guys can come to Dále and purchase it. And really, if you're interested in Latin, this book is extraordinary. She's actually a sociologist. She's an anthropologist. She started something called the LatinX Project at NYU. So she looks at the art market and at the museums as, you know, it's almost like a sociological study. It's so interesting. And one of the things that she talks about, as you were saying, is the gatekeeping, right? The gatekeeping of not only a funding gatekeeping, the galleries, you know, the blue chip galleries that are predominantly, you know, the collecting, a white collecting base. So there's a class issue. She talks about the museums. By the way, you know, museums are the most colonial institution there is. They were started to base the plunder and the pillage of all the colonized places into one pretty place. And usually they look like Greco-Roman, you know, temples. So, I mean, it doesn't get more colonial than that. Which is why, like I mentioned, this grant from all these foundations to get more curators and work into these major museums is such a big deal. But what also I think really drives the conversation forward is what's happening locally. And what happens locally, there's, like I said, I mentioned that when I say blue chip galleries, I mean the super like Gagosian, the ones where you're moving like major millions. But what really in a community, in a place like ours, what drives our causes forward are local galleries. And one of my personal favorite galleries, and honestly, I think that the programming that you guys did last year for Art Basel was my favorite of all, is Homework Gallery. And that is this lovely couple right now. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself and tell us.
Well, my name is Aurelio Aguiló. I'm the co-founder of Homework with my wife Mayra. We're both from the Dominican Republic, Dominican immigrants living here. We're the gallery started as an idea of going around the gatekeepers that you were mentioning, because we felt that there wasn't a space for the artists that we believed in, especially from places like the Dominican Republic, the Caribbean. There wasn't a space for them during important times in the art world calendar to show their work and shine. So the idea started as a nomadic space where we would follow this calendar and exist temporarily and shine a light for these artists that we felt deserve an opportunity. The project has expanded and evolved. We're now opening our first permanent space in Little River, where we had the Hormiga Caribe show, and we're doing an all-women show next month on the 17th. But yeah, it started like that. It started because I came into the art world over a decade ago, and I felt all these things that you're describing, and I felt like, well, the artists that I grew up with, the friends of mine that I know, the people that I've been around all my life in the Dominican Republic, they need to be in these spaces because they have, first of all, artwork that's very powerful and beautiful, but they have something to say and they deserve a spot. So we're more than happy to be able to afford that spot.
So my next question for everyone I want us to talk about, sort of piggyback on what you said, is when we, in our various roles in the art world, have felt that the gatekeeping and the pigeonholing, and I worked at the Guggenheim a long time ago, and before that I was in graduate school, and I went to graduate school to study Latin American colonial art, but not one of my teachers was Latin American. They were all No, they were all American men. They were all men. And so it was very strange because, and in order to study Latin American art, so the first Latin American curator or LatinX curator in the United States was Maria Carmen Ramirez, and she was hired in 1988 to lead the Blanton Museum. She studied where I studied. She studied with some of my teachers. When she went to study with them, there was no Latin American courses. She had to study with this German philosophy professor named Reinhold Heller, who said, oh, well, if you study German philosophy, that's a good base. So it's that whole concept of thinking like that's your base. So that's what I mean when I say gatekeeping. I mean in the art world and in the narrative of art history, everything is measured on this narrative of modern art, which is a narrative of Western, linear, very, and it has its art stars. I mean, if you talk to most people and they're like art, it's always Monet, Picasso, it's shocking, but it's always European art. That's always the gauge. And still, in every space, it's still the gauge. So for me, it was going to graduate school and realizing I'm studying modern art. Who's this Clement Greenberg guy? Why am I reading this? Who cares? Why is it all men? I mean, it was so, and I didn't know what to name it, how, and it wasn't until I finally found a professor that studied, who was from India, and I was like, wow, he's talking about colonialism, and it was just, it opened my, and now I think it's very different. But for me, and when I worked in the museum, it was the same thing. I think I was one of 3 Latinx people, and it was a guard, it was another person in the education department, and it was myself. And para de contar, that's it. So I'm going to go around. I will start with you. Gatekeeping, or if you felt you ever had like a push, and it doesn't have to be negative. It could be positive, because I'm going to talk about the positive parts of Miami having such a inclusive community. But you as an artist coming up into these spaces, have you had that experience? Or
I guess being here in Miami is, I think it's more diluted, so it's not like negative experience. I guess probably during the pandemic, and I saw this as, let me see, not balanced with other artists that are white. And during the pandemic, there were these grants that, like for BIPOC, right? So I got one of those, but there were other white artists that were struggling with the pandemic and didn't get any grants. I was able to get a few of them to be able to continue. Yeah, I guess, I don't know, that kind of benefited me in a way.
yeah. You got something to say.
So, I don't know if you all heard about the Burns-Hallerbin report. Just 2 ladies who got together, and they thought museums were progressive, so they were trying to see if... No? Acá. Hola. Alright. So these 2 ladies got together, and they thought museums were progressive in 2022, so they wanted to see if the pieces in museums, if the art of museums actually represented America and America's diversity. I have a point here. I'm gonna ask you what you guys think. What do you think is the percentage of Black American artists represented in museums? 7%. Anyone else? 2. You got it. 2.2%. So and this was, they did it with, this was in 2022. Yeah, and they did it with, I'm trying to think of the number of museums, but it was like a big amount of like data. And I have one more question. How many do you think were Black American women? 0.5. Go. 0.5. And then when it comes to Latino, Latinx, what do you think? Okay, so this is what's this is what's interesting about Latinx artists. It was so hard to account for what this term means that they had to basically do a whole different study, and they're going to do it right. We're in 2024. They still don't know how much representation we have. So in 2025, they've got funding. And what they were saying, I mean, sometimes the whole Latinx thing at least helps us like clump us all up so that we can see how we're represented, you know, just for data matters. So they're going to try to do a census. I think my fear is it might be less than 0.5%. Like, who knows, you know? So, and back to gatekeeping, I was talking to a writer who wrote about how to get more collectors of color. Like, how do we get more people to like care about art, to buy art? And I think a lot of this, starts with being able to see yourselves in other artists, in the stuff that they create at museums. And for me, a role as a journalist, I mean, most of the time I'm just behind a computer listening to people and hearing stories and looking for stories. But I think as a journalist, the only like maybe power I have that I try to use is if I'm gonna get through a door and if I'm gonna like maybe get into a national outlet, I'm gonna make sure that like all the people I interview are probably people of color, is, you know, Black, Latin people who don't always get a voice, you know. If you think there's a white artist out there who's good, go see if there's a Hispanic or a Black artist or a Haitian artist of color who's doing work that's maybe even better, and like focus on them because they're probably not getting that platform. And I think that we all like benefit from just uplifting each other. And I'm gonna say one more thing, get out of my soapbox. Resources. When I moved to Miami from New York City, maybe it's a thing, I'm all about sharing the resources. I think in Miami, because there's not a lot of resources, there's not enough funding, I didn't always experience like sharing of resources. But when it comes to me, if anybody is interested in writing a profile and pitching a story and doing an art review, if you like to write and there's an artist that speaks to you, like if there's any way I can like mentor you, help you write a pitch, and also connect you to editors, that's like a lot of what I do.
And she means it. She really does. And that's another thing. And I also worked in New York, and it is way different. The community here in Miami is pretty amazing. And what you said, the sharing of resources. I mean, I've met a bunch of you guys that I know on Instagram that I follow. Miami does have a really incredibly inclusive community. And that is, we are so fortunate. Couple that with the 72% identifying Latinx people, and, you know, we're in a really good position right now with where I think the conversation is going to go nationally, especially with someone like Carmen Ramos that I mentioned. I keep mentioning her, but, you know, truly, like, she is incredible. And I'm going to share later a list of resources, and I'm going to put a couple of her interviews and some of the YouTubes so you can hear her talk. She's incredibly powerful. So things are going to change. And I know that Teresita Fernandez, she in 2016, I believe, she started one of the first compendiums of artists, just because she said she got tired of being the only Latina in an all-white modern art space, right? Because she is technically in that space of blue chip galleries where she is she's selling her work. She has retrospectives at PAM. And so it's very interesting because you have people like her as well. So you have artists, curators, funders, you know, the needle is shifting. And I think it's a really exciting time to be here in Miami. And I think we all, like you were saying, we have to share the resources. We have to pump each other up, go to the exhibits. You know, Art Basel's coming up. You know, check out what your local galleries are doing, because I promise you, like, their programming is going to be more or as interesting as anything that's coming. Okay, now I'm going to move over to you. And the question is, and you don't have to answer this question. You can talk about whatever you want, because you can, you know, your experiences. But I was just sort of talking about this idea of like the gatekeeping, the breaking the mold of like the traditional art hierarchies.
Okay. it's important to. Is this still? Like really close to. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's important when talking about identity, talking about the categories of Latinx and the idea of Hispanic, to note that, I mean, there's an intersection that happens. There's intersections that happen across different identities. So for me, I think that was always something that I was researching within my work. I felt like it was hard, or in a country that is so eager to box us into different categories, it's hard to be able to explain all the different categories you fit into. So, I mean, my mom has indigenous background on her side, so she's Peruvian, and then I'm first generation, and my dad's Dominican, and my dad is black. So then, and I'm also Latina because they're from Latin America. So I remember leaving Miami. Miami has a lot of people that are Latinos. So I didn't have to really explain too much when I would talk to people or like present myself. But when I left to college, I was in Baltimore for a few years. I felt like those conversations were necessary. I felt like Americans have like a very strict idea of what identity is. So you're thinking of separating, like even in that poll that you're talking about, black people, black artists, and then they're working on Latino artists now. So where would I fall? Yeah. So it's just interesting, like I think that idea. And so I remember, I think it was my sophomore year of college, and I was studying fashion and textiles, I made a whole collection of fashion, a fashion collection, all about this idea of ethnicity, nationality, and what was the other one? Ethnicity, nationality, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Yeah, race. So of course. So and the difference between the three, because they intersect, and the collection was a way for me to kind of explore that, and still early in my career, but like exploring the idea of like how to represent those three things and the intersections of them through color. So I was researching like the manta and the textile that comes from Latin America, and how to translate the stripes, which represent different regions in Peru that you're from. At least in Peru, I know it's also across different regions in the Andes. So I was thinking about that as like a representation of, a more complex representation of like the intersections of places that you're from, as opposed to these different types of identity. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
About gatekeeping, our whole gallery is basically a rebellion against gatekeeping. It started, the idea was sparked in New York. I was living in New York for a long time. I did my master's over there in art business, and then started the journey of applying for jobs. And I don't know, I probably sent out like 1,000 resumes, 1,000 cover letters, got a few interviews, and it's always like at galleries, museums, auction houses. It was like we don't really have a Latin American programming here and stuff like that. So right away I was boxed in. Some people even, I don't want to get into the specifics, but it was always that thing in the back of my mind. Why is this happening? Like people that went to grad school with me, some Americans and stuff like that, would get jobs right away and all this stuff. But I was boxed in right away, and I found it incredibly frustrating. That on top of visiting galleries and feeling that coldness of being received as not a collector but a viewer or an art consumer, that I felt extremely cold. So I started thinking about that, going around the gatekeepers, like fuck these gatekeepers, we'll just do what we want to do. I don't know if I can curse, but so it started like that, and I think it continues like that. Like we started even doing things parallel to the art world and to the art market, which I have mixed feelings about. And now we're kind of integrating a little bit more with other people that I feel are going around the gatekeepers and creating their own things. Like, well, we did a fair, the one that comes to mind is a fair we did in the Dominican Republic called Mecca, which is just starting a fair with people from Latin America and from the Caribbean and doing our own thing in our own place. And lots of collectors and people, big people from the art world traveled over there to see what we were doing. And that was incredible. So our gallery is trying to starting to embrace these types of things, and without giving it a lot of mind. Like sometimes the whole Hispanic LatinX thing, I feel like it's a big monolith. And sometimes I never even thought about things like that growing up in the Dominican Republic. It's just when I came here that they boxed me into this thing, and that's you. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, we're totally different cultures. Sometimes the only thing we have things in common, but it's like Americans are very adamant to separate themselves from the English or other people that speak English. But when it comes to us, it's you guys are all the same. And I always found that frustrating, and I don't know. I think I lost my point there, but yeah, the whole idea of homework is going against the gatekeepers, because at the end we don't really need them to create what we want to create. If not, you're going to dilute your vision and just fall into their box, and you're in their monolith again.
Yeah, and just to complicate things even more, so really this idea of a Latin American art market really starts in the 70s when Sotheby's and Christie's start a department called Latin American art, right? And Arlene Davila in this book, which I will talk about ad nauseum, she makes a really interesting distinction between Latin American art and Latinx art. And again, I'm just using Latinx as a category just to facilitate this conversation. She talks about something called national privilege. And she said that before, like from the 70s onward, artists that are Latin American have this thing that she calls national privilege, because they can operate in the United States as an Argentine American artist, right? They can travel back to Argentina, and in Argentina they have all the institutional support of embassies, of that government, and then so if they feel marginalized here, they can go back. Now, what happens with Latinx or people that were maybe first generation born here? How about someone who doesn't have who doesn't have a visa or who cannot travel, right? That's a whole different level of segregation, and that's something that happens quite a bit. I mean, in order to enter the space of galleries and museums and everything, it does demand a certain level of privilege. A lot of it is gained through education, and a lot of these graduate programs are really expensive, prohibitive to someone who doesn't have, parental or like a grant from the government. And another thing that happens is art jobs, and I know because I lived in New York. I was married, or I could not have worked at the museum, because you either need a parent or you need another. I mean, it is very hard to live in places like New York and now Miami, right? And work in these industries where the jobs are. I mean, what's an entry level job at a museum right now? Anyone know? Yeah, like visitor service. Yeah, it's it's non-livable wages. So you find that many of the artists that need to have second jobs are, again, mainly people of color, because they have to have another job. They cannot support themselves. So I think that's another topic that interests me in this debate. Carolina, anything to say about that?
Yes. That's why sometimes I get a little resentful of people who get a staff job and make $100K a year writing 2 articles a month. I'm just gonna say that. But for me, I've been a middle school teacher, so I've taught Spanish 5th, 6th, 7th grade. 7th grade is my thing. I love 7th graders. And then on the side, I've always done my writing, sadly. That being said, I love talking about money too. So you can make like $600 on a story. So if you have a full-time job, or maybe you can make $800. Some stories might pay you $1,000. So it's like you could still make a little. You can make a little extra money, but you probably can't make a living out of this unless you have rich parents. So back to that, having a full-time job, gatekeepers. I have one more thing to say. That too. Well, I want to ask the audience, because a lot of you are artists. when it comes to Miami, the local art scene, what are some? I'm better at asking questions. What are some frustrations that maybe you all have when it comes to trying to get your work out there? When it comes to press, yeah, like journalists, like you want somebody to come look at your work and write about it.
I don't know.
Or maybe you don't. Maybe you do. Just
say access to studio space that's public, because I don't know if I would want someone coming into my house.
Okay.
Because I work out of my house. I'm also an arts writer, but how do I afford a studio in a public setting if I I can barely afford to live in this city. So.
That was no. Like, I mean, nobody likes self-promotion, but sometimes, like, you want to promote your work. I mean, I know we don't want to talk about it.
I thought cold calling was frowned upon nowadays, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Instagram someone, DM them.
Part of it, yeah, I don't. Perspective or something.
Ronald, do you have anything? No? Okay. I guess from someone who comes from the journalism and the art writing world, I don't have the bandwidth to cover all the amazing things happening. And there's a few other art writers here who are amazing, who I think are also trying to cover the arts. And I sometimes noted, don't be commercial, don't go commercial.
I would say, so I moved to Miami almost a year ago, and I moved from DC, and before then, DC, Baltimore, and before then I was in New York City. This is maybe not what you want to hear, but a thing that I find that is interesting is I find there to be less barriers here, or less social layers of separation between art writers and artists. So I find that writers and even collectors, for example, are much more accessible. It's not like you have to like go talk to this person who then is like, okay, I know them, I'll try to get them to come to your show. And people are a lot more approachable, where you're like, look, you want to write, come and I'll help you like write a thing. Whereas in DC, it's more like, no, there's a level of kind of elitism and also separation between the writers and the artists, and there's not such a level of approachability. Like there's more formality, there's more airs about it, there's more like kiss the ring in terms of like what gets written about or what doesn't get written about. And that's not to detract from how Miami fits into the global art world or global art scene. I do think that one thing that is true here is that the community is very tight-knit locally, and that may not translate to like national exposure in the way that it does in DC, but also it does in some ways translate to just closer relationships between artists and art writers that I haven't experienced in those other places.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll piggy off that, because I also feel like, it could just be because of the circle that I run in, but like I can count like the art writers that I know that are featuring artists that I personally am interested in and care about, like off my hand, and 2 of you are in the space. And there's 5 that I can think of. You, Doug, Issa, there's Amanda, and Monica, like. And they're also all under a certain age too, which I think is part of this conversation, but I don't necessarily. Yeah, besides that. So
I love that everyone goes by first name here. It's great.
How do you find emerging artists, and what if an emerging artist approaches you?
Yeah, this is my message, and then I'll let other people talk. Don't wait for someone to discover you, because it's not how it goes. Message people. Find somebody who maybe, Isabel, you're an assistant editor, you know this too, but like find someone who maybe, like, read our publications. If there's any art writer who's writing about work that maybe is similar to yours or has a similar style, email them. Hey, I loved your article. Come to my show. Sadly, the PR part, it's like we all have to do it. I have to do it too with editors. Like, hi, I'm a writer. I don't know. Hit me up. DM me. Instagram me. That's That's how I make my friends.
Hello. So I actually have a PR and marketing agency as well. We work a lot with artists and galleries and cultural institutions. And I'm seeing very eye to eye with this conversation. And there is 100% oversaturation of like the amount of like art that there is, and very low bandwidth for the amount of art or writers that are out there. So I think what we see when we're representing a gallery or an art is that you really need to have everything, like have your photos, have your pitch, have your press release, because the writers don't have the bandwidth or the time or resources to like be going through their inbox and like asking back for all those questions that they need. So the more laid out you have, the easier it'll be for your story or your art to get picked up. That's all.
I mean, I'm not, this isn't PR, this is what I love to do. I love like Miami local artists. Like, I don't write about, I just want to, I can write about Los Angeles.
Okay, well now I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit before we lose, because we got to go drink more tequila. I was lucky enough to be able to go to Venice, the Venice Biennale this year. And by the way, first time since 1865 that a person from the Global South actually was the head curator. So Adriano Pedroso is Brazilian, and it was phenomenal. And he had 4 pillars for the Venice Biennale, and it was, and by the way, the whole thing was called Foreigners Everywhere. So it was all about this theme of the foreigner, so it was like the foreigner, the immigrant, the queer, and decolonial and indigenous perspectives. I mean, it was fivefold, sorry. And he really did it. And by the way, there were almost 30% Latin American, LatinX artists. That is unbelievable, record setting. Like we won't see that again for a long time. So it really, it floored me. It was incredible. But interesting enough, researching this talk, I was like, wait a minute, okay, so is it Latin American or Latinx? And there we go. Like most of the artists that were there were Latin American, and that's such a slippery slope. Take for instance, I don't know if you guys have been to the ICA to see the Celia Sanchez show. So she is always written about as a Cuban artist. And that in the art world, you know, there's like trends, and with Carmen Herrera, I mean, there was a big trend of like rediscovered Cuban artists. Apparently you have to be over 75 for the art world to take notice. You have to overlooked. You have to be either young, forget being a mom, or you have to be 75 and older. But anyway, she, and it's interesting because in this book she writes about, she's like, really, she lives in Puerto Rico. She's lived in Puerto Rico for 50 years. I mean, she was born in Cuba, but you ask her, she is Puerto Rican. So why are we still referring to her as a Cuban artist? Anyway, again, this issue, I love this issue of identity and making things problematic and making categories problematic, because we have so much left to figure out. And back to your point of what you were saying, what I said at the beginning, you know, here we are trying to find these terms to a region that has hundreds of languages and socioeconomic categories and ethnicities and race, whatever you want to call it. It's just, and I know if most of you are Latin American like me and you try to tell someone a little bit about that. I mean, I grew up in Texas, and I landed there when I was 5 to an all suburban white, nobody spoke Spanish. And once when I learned English, people did not understand what Ecuador was. They thought it was in Africa. And then and then in Texas at that time in the 70s, you were either American or Mexican. That's it. No other categories. So I do think like it's evolved, but we got a long way to go. So back to this whole idea of what I was talking about, the Venice Biennale, and about these themes. I want to talk a little bit to the artist, the gallerist, about, and it's a very general question, but I know you work with the issue of migration. I just want to know, like, how Miami, the city of Miami, the culture of Miami affects maybe your curatorial or just what your subject matter, your themes that you're exploring?
Yeah, I think like what I said before, it's diluted. So I think it's the general idea. The story keeps repeating over and over again, and that's what I'm talking about. And then I just expand that to other locations. Like my latest piece, big installation, is called Mare Magnum, and it's a voyage through the seas with 14 boats, 81 characters navigating perpetually.
You actually have to see this on Instagram. It's pretty amazing. How really? You're not. I mean, how is it? It's projected, right?
It is projected 360 degrees, 9 projectors for now, but the original one is 12 projections and 10 feet tall and probably 120 the surface around the perimeter of the exhibition space. And so this piece kind of like came with this idea when I first came to the US. The first thing I saw in the news was a boat full of refugees from Haiti coming to the US, and this situation of like, will the same Cuban laws apply to them or not, like the wet feet, dry feet, and so it did. But so kind of like from there I started that conversation, like the location where I live, the migration through the seas, but also my first solo show in Europe with my gallerist in Madrid. So it was like having this conversation with what is happening there as well. So I thought that it was great to do this piece, even though I had another piece that was not feasible at the moment. But seeing this repetition of history, repetition of events, not focusing on the specifics, but the general idea. And it happened with me, it happened with my friends, kind of like the same story about identity, not feeling like, well, it is different when you move here at your age, like 5, or me at 17. I already had a personality based on South America. And it's funny because when you were mentioning that, I was thinking about some applications, like for grants or residencies, they ask you where you, how do you identify yourself. I always choose other and put South American.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Peñafiel with it.
The Peñafiel with the ñ as well, because that's identifier. I don't have it on my license, but when I have an exhibition, it is very important for me that the institution puts the ñ there, because that's a badge. That's something that tells where I'm from.
And that's interesting because, again, this issue of language, and right, and that's again the X, and Arlene Davida's point that it's a site. It's sort of like it's in motion. It's like X marks the spot. I'm here. So I really like. It's a very enunciative term. So I think for now, it works for me.
It
but
should be X.
Yeah, it should be what?
X.
X. But then we're like Elon Muskish. We don't want to do that.
But LatinX is
what? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Latine.
And what's funny is actually in Spanish, like when I'm in Ecuador and I listen to this discourse and what all the things that they say, I'm like, whoa, that's even another layer of confusion. But back to what I was saying. Oh, anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, never mind. Would you like to talk any about this?
So you were asking about Miami and how it like impacts our practices. So well, I was born in Miami, so I don't know if you guys agree, but maybe somebody that's also from Miami, maybe you don't appreciate it as a city until you leave. There's this whole like theory. So that happened to me. So I basically left, I explained that I went to college in Baltimore. So I left for a few years to study. I just remember like missing, obviously the weather's different. So I was missing the climate here and I had taken for granted all of the plants that grow so abundantly throughout the entire year. And then again, when I did a residency in Colorado at the Anderson Ranch Center, and Victoria's here that was also there in residence with me and other artists. And I remember we did a indigo dyeing workshop, and I remember it was a few years after I had graduated, so I studied textiles. I learned how to dye every color on the color wheel, on fabric, from synthetic dyes to natural dyes, everything. And it was so overwhelming that I did not want to do that ever again. I told myself that when I graduated, I was like, I'm not touching this again. I gave away my binder that was a 5-inch binder of all my samples. I gave it away to a friend that was just like, I like fabric. And I was like, okay, you like fabric? I'll give you this binder. I'm not going to need it. But then I remember going to that residency. And again, I was outside of Miami, outside of this idea of textiles or studying it in Baltimore, when I realized, wow, you know, these traditions or these like techniques are something that is so easily accessible in Miami. Like I felt like being here gave me access to all of the plants that I needed to do this, and it gave it way more meaning. Because I remember being in college just like trying to make all these colors, but not really understanding where they're coming from, where is the plants, what do they look like. We get powder forms of everything, and we've skipped the history. So I felt like a calling to maybe do some research around the history. And I just remember like talking to my mom, and she's telling me about the bug that we use that's called cochinilla that grows on a cacti, and it grew in her backyard in Peru. And so she was giving me all this information on her personal life, on her personal experiences, right? And then I'm combining that with research that I'm doing for my art, and then all of the technical knowledge that I learned in undergrad. So I think being here really cemented the whole thing of, okay, well, we're in paradise, we're around plants all the time, and how can I not use it in my artwork, or how can I not acknowledge it or appreciate it any longer? So it really like allowed me to feel present where I am, and it was the residency I did for a year at the Deering Estate that really helped me just like, I don't know, just be outside and just be happy. And I would just go, I remember having my studio, and I would take lunch and I would walk over to Biscayne Bay and just sit and have a picnic every day and just eat my lunch there, and really just like feel like inspired by everything that was going around, just the things that we take, that we don't acknowledge when we're maybe in Bayside and we're like around around that area, and we're also on Biscayne Bay. So it was then that I remember going with the Parks and Recreation, the naturalists from Miami-Dade Parks and Rec, and going in their golf cart. We would drive around the acres and acres of lands that they have at Deering Estate that are private lands, and these lands have artifacts from the Takesa people. They have all of this history, and they have all the plants ever known. I just felt like that in my head, at least. And they would point them out. Hey, Diana, why don't you try this? Take it back to your studio. So I'd take a cutting, I'd boil it, see what happened, what colors I would get, until I kind of found my colors, my primary colors. And that was a few years of like just boiling things. Just boiling things to find color, and then feeling that connection, that actual, like a actual practice, a joy in it, as opposed to a way to control it and like, you know, harness it for production purposes. So that was, yeah, Miami. I credit Miami to that.
And if you guys don't know, the local arts organization commissioner, it's incredible, and you are going to be doing a workshop.
Yes.
Yes. So check them out too.
Yes.
And like I said, I have written. We'll write all this up with all the resources, articles, whatever you want. You can just send me your email, and I'm happy to email you all this info. I'm going to end with a question with you, but I'm also just going to do another acknowledgement of how awesome Miami is. So right now at PAM, Gilbert Vicario, is that who you pronounce his last name? There is a groundbreaking show on Chicano art. It's incredible. I'm going tomorrow with that lady. But I've read and it's truly on an institutional level. It's such a great show. And it is a lot of the academic conversation about Latinx art has been driven by Chicano artists, Chicano writers. I mean, just really, and most of this happens in California. So this show is going to be, I think it's a really interesting dialogue. I'm very curious to talk to more artists once they go, because it's the same, but it's different. So I encourage you guys to go. I also want to shout out to MoCA, which is one of my favorite museums. I think their programming is incredible. I have seen 2 exhibits of Haitian artists in the past 2 years that were like out of this world. So I just, and again, I think that we have these incredible museums. We got one across right over there, but I think, we as consumers of art need to tell these institutions what we appreciate. And like, I always appreciate seeing those type of artists. I want to see Haitian artists. I live in Miami, I want to see. So I encourage you, like you encourage pitches, I encourage you to also speak out when you're there to visitor services and just tell them what you think and what you want to see more of. What about you when you're curating shows versus Miami versus New York, as far as like?
As far as the subject matter?
Yeah.
Well, here in Miami, what we've been kind of exploring in the past few shows that we've done is bringing immigrant artists, or not even immigrant artists, artists from other countries, and having them in dialogue with Miami artists, and seeing how these works communicate with each other. And it's always been interesting to see how Miami sometimes is kind of like a Caribbean or a Latin American country. Like there's so many similarities between local artists, that some that have never even gone to these places, but they communicate so well with the work from Latin America and from the Caribbean. In terms of curation, we're now in the process of, almost done with the process of curating a show with all immigrant artists from the collection of the Miami-Dade Library, which is going to open in October in the Westchester branch. And that was an awesome experience, because we were in that cellar where they have the collection, and we were pulling out these incredible works from everybody, Rauschenberg and everybody. It was amazing. And the ones that we gravitated towards were the ones that were by immigrant artists. So we're doing 25 immigrant artists from the collection that spans decades. And yeah, that has been an amazing experience. And now the one that we're doing at our gallery next month as well has a lot of immigrants and Caribbean artists. And our team, that is very important, from the artists to the PR, the people that help us with PR, the art installers, they're all either immigrants or sons of immigrants, and it all goes into what we're doing, and it's not by design, it's just how the way it works. And I don't think that would have happened anywhere else other than the city,
Yeah, and that's also, I'm just going to end on one note. The impression that I had to Venice Biennale, I was like, wow, this is happening organically in Miami. We're having all these shows. All of these themes that they're hitting on, that's what we do locally here. So, and again, it's just like, I think we're living in an incredible moment right now in Miami, vis-a-vis the global art market. And so anyway, I thank you guys for being here, for driving the conversation. Let's keep talking about it. And thank you. Any questions for anyone here?
First of all, hello. Thank you so much to the panel, and thank you for the conversation. I really appreciate it. My name's Juan Pablo. I'm new to the community. I'm from New York, an artist. I definitely am very passionate about the topic of terms Latinx versus Hispanic. And I have more of a statement than necessarily a question that maybe we can have a dialogue about, is the fact that how do we protect ourselves from seeing ourselves from the Anglo lens? Because what unites us is our Hispanicness. If I find, my family's from Colombia, if I find somebody from Mexico and I'm traveling in France, or any part of the world, what unites us is our Hispanicness, Spanish, and so much that we have in common. I think, I'll give you an example, and it's just, I think it's a very complex topic. The word Latin was introduced by the French, and it was introduced by the French in order to separate Latin America or South America from the Spanish. So that's a European term as well. I just think we just really need to protect ourselves from that Anglo lens. The colonial experience of the South is very different from the colonial experience from the North. It's a very different thing. And I think that's something to really have a dialogue about. And again, thank you so much.
And, that's actually a conversation about decoloniality, which I could talk to you for 10 hours, and I'm not going to. But I will happy to do that. And then I think that's the goal. The goal is to decolonize the museum, decolonize art history, that is the goal. And I think, again, after seeing the Venice Biennale, and actually the Whitney Biennial too, which had an entire floor of the most incredible indigenous art video I've ever seen. Incredible. And by the way, Jerry Saltz, the art critic of the people, dismissed the whole Whitney Biennial as not really my thing. So read other critics. But yeah, I really love that question, and I'm going to talk to you later because I'd love to do a whole, that's my jam. I love that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
So this kind of hinges on some of the things Diana has said, but also we're sitting in the design district, right? We're also just actually in Little Haiti, and we're having a panel about Latin artists, which I think you're including Haitian artists within that, right? But there's not Haitian artists on the panel, and I don't know that they're...
So Nadia Wolf was invited to be on the panel.
Sure.
I really wanted her to be, and also, we had like a communication issue, and believe me, if I was really having this conversation, there would be 20 of us. And I agree, and thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, I agree with you. And I certainly include Haiti into the conversation.
And there's a question here. So the question for you all is, what do you see, and it's been talked around, right, where you have the statistics about like black artists in museums, but then you look at like Afro-Latin, right, because all of the countries that you're talking about as Latino or Hispanic, Central American, South American, Caribbean, they're black people and indigenous people and Afro-Indigenous people in all of those countries, right? But then when you look at the representation of Latino artists or Latin artists, South American, Central American, you don't see the Afro-Latin folks there. And so in Miami, how do you see that dynamic play out, essentially, of like white supremacy and anti-blackness within the art world here, where you do have 70% Latino folks, right? And also you have black folks, and so you have like, Latino galleries, like you said, your galleries in Little River, which is also Little Haiti, right? And so that's part of gentrifying and shifting people out of Little Haiti. What do you see that dynamic as being as here?
I mean, I'm just going to start.
For the whole
and then
panel, so it's
yeah,
it's not for just
I think like I said, on an institutional level, I think a museum like MoCA does, in my opinion, a really good job. Not just the programming, but also the exhibits that they have. That's on an institutional level. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I think my own experience being an immigrant is that a lot of us, like white passing Latinos or Latinxes, or we still bring our racism and sexism with us when we immigrate. And I think there's got to be work and conversations around that, and it's okay to have those conversations. And when it comes to the Haitian community, I think Haitian artists need all the love right now, especially after the recent political debate. So again, yeah, this is when we need to like just give a platform to a community and support them as much as possible, even if they might, not look like us.
While y'all think, I do have a little follow-up question about the study you referenced. What was the name of it?
It's two ladies that happen to be white, and one of them was the editor of ArtNet, and they did, and I think just to give them the benefit of the doubt, sometimes I guess they have to lump us all into a category just to like see, okay, how much representation are we getting in museums? But for example, the Afro-Latino question is an interesting one because where is a person that identifies as Afro-Latino, how are they going to get grouped? Are they going to be in the, or someone who's indigenous? So, and that's the question, and they've gotten a lot of funding for this, so hopefully they're going to release an interesting report. Yeah, but no, that's it.
Thank you. It was the Helen Burns?
It's the Burns-Hallerman report.
Okay.
I can link it. Yeah,
Thank
ArtNet.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll link it too. And I'm only mentioning them just because they're the only people in 222 who at least did a study. Like, it's unbelievable. And they thought the museums were progressive. They're like, oh, I guess they're not. I don't know. But thank you so much. Those are really great questions.
I'd just like to add some words of encouragement to this illustrious panel because the plight of the marginalized is not easy, and there's a lot of problematicness in progress. And I just really want to be encouraging to the progress that you're making, and it's not going to be perfect, but progress is progress. And like you were talking about being in PR and there being an inherent bottleneck to what we're doing, and those who have a platform, and Carolina, you said you try to pay things forward. There's just the inherent and inevitable risk of the gate kept becoming the gatekeeper. And I think if we all just remain conscientious and do our best, that's all we can do. But I think some of the energy that we're feeling is right, but it can't be perfect, but we have to move forward. And I think everything that everybody's up there that's doing is really, really positive.
I mean, people weren't having these conversations on this level. I mean, it was, not talked about. And still in many spaces in, art, it's not, people don't want to talk about it. So I agree. Like, it's good. Yeah, no, and it's good to get uncomfortable and get that's what we have to do. All of these categories are problematic. The fact that we're having this conversation is problematic, but here we are,
I just think we need to change the stereotype of what a Latino person looks like. I think that is like where we begin, because media has set and entertainment has shown us a very specific visual of who a Latino is. And I think that there is so many intersections. And so it's very important to have these conversations. And then also remember that Latinidad includes non-Spanish speaking countries, like other countries that speak Creole, in Brazil, so Portuguese. So yeah, there's different, I think we forget that there's different countries, and every country has black people, first of all, and then there's indigenous people within those countries as well. And it's just surprising every time I talk to someone about that, and they're like, oh, there's black people in Cuba, there's black people in these countries, like that. Yeah, so and yeah, I see it with my dad, like how he functions, and even how people talk to me if they're not sure if I speak Spanish or not. But I think it's important we're having a conversation today.
Hi everyone. It's more of a statement. Thank you, Diana, for saying that. I think it is important to mention that there are different types of people in one region or whatnot. I'm Haitian. And to say that we don't all look alike, there are a lot of white passing Haitians. So we have to remember that as well. It's not just like one type, but that they don't look like us. That doesn't really translate well. But I think what Diana said really well put, and just wanted to add that it's both ways in a way. So yeah, just wanted to put that statement out.
Any other questions?
I think, well, these different terms, whatever they are, they tend to divide more than unite us. And it's like, for example, the LatinX term doesn't fit me. I don't feel represented by it. So is it a political strategy to divide and conquer? So, because it is a very institutional, how institution refers to us, especially here. And yeah, I don't know. And let me see. And I just think that, yeah, it is a thing of divide and conquer. I see it in Argentina, I see it in Chile and Mexico, which, not the terms, but let's say the inclusion of the E at Latin, or the E in the inclusive language. But again, what is inclusive language? Are you also learning sign language or Braille? So what is inclusive? So if I tend to be like strict too, because it tends to get absurd. Laws have loopholes and people take advantage of that. So in the same way, I question the LatinX or Bible, who fits it.
Yo siento morirme y morirme. En el otro mundo no se puede parrandear. En el otro mundo no se puede cumbanchar. Óyeme Samar, yo siento morirme y morirme. En el otro mundo no se puede parrandear. En el otro mundo no se puede cumbanchar. Óyeme Sama, yo siento morir. Óyeme Sama, bom bom. Óyeme Sama, yo siento morir. Óyeme Sama.
Dijeron los campesinos, ay con su libre albedrío. Dijeron los campesinos, ay con su libre albedrío. Con su maraca y un guiro a la orilla de un bohío.
Óyeme Sama, yo siento morir. Óyeme Sama, bom bom. Óyeme Sama, yo siento morir. Óyeme Sama.
Estaba sentado yo y oí cantar un viejito. Estaba sentado yo y oí cantar un viejito. Y en su cantico decía, mira que el chango es bonito.
Óyeme Sama, yo siento morir. Óyeme Sama, bom bom. Óyeme Sama, yo siento morir. Óyeme Sama.
El changui vino de oriente lleno de lindos colores. El changui vino de oriente lleno de lindos colores. Lo trajo revés, señores, para que goce la gente.
Con ese bombón yo quiero guarachar.
Oye Samá,
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 Con ese bombón yo quiero guarachar.
oye Samá.
Agua la metangala.
Vámonos para el son chitingainza.
Yo quiero guarachar.
Vamos a bailar.
Yo quiero guarachar.
Con changuina más.
Yo quiero guarachar.
Amachana mi son.
Yo quiero guarachar. Yo quiero guarachar. Yo quiero guarachar. Yo quiero guarachar.
Siempre me decía que en tu casa se comía bien. Siempre me decía que en tu casa se comía bien. Siempre me decía que en tu casa se comía bien. Siempre me decía que en tu casa se comía bien. Pero ayer yo fui y me encontré con tu mamá comiendo su plato con caché, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, plátano maduro, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, plátano maduro, harina de maíz. Harina de maíz, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, plátano maduro, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, harina de maíz, plátano maduro.
Si me comprendieras, si me conocieras, qué feliz sería. Si me comprendieras, si me conocieras, jamás dudarías, ya que estando lejos tú eres ajena, porque vas conmigo. Tú que en mis recuerdos alivias mis penas, la noche y el día. Si me comprendieras y si me conocieras, qué feliz sería. Y mis condiciones serían las razones que tú aceptarías. Si me comprendieras tan siquiera un poco, todo cambiaría, porque al fin verías que por ti estoy loco. Ya que estando lejos tú eres ajena, porque vas conmigo. Tú que en mis recuerdos alivias mis penas, la noche y el día. Si me comprendieras y si me conocieras, qué feliz sería. Y mis condiciones serían las razones que tú aceptarías. Si me comprendieras tan siquiera un poco, todo cambiaría, porque al fin verías que por ti estoy loco. Si me comprendieras
sí me acuerdo cómo cuesta ganarlo. Cuentos y el dinero, claro que sí. Tanto y tanto por precaución. Cosas suceden en la ciudad. Qué cosa extraña, el mundo ya no da. Guardaré calma. Guardaré mis precauciones. Egoístas, cierto. ¿Por qué no? ¿Por qué no habré de serlo? Si cuando aprieta el estómago, ¿con qué podré llenarlo? Cosas suceden en la ciudad. Qué cosa extraña, la gente ya no da. Te amo yo, me amas tú, me pides mucho más. Quiero yo, quieres tú, todo por interés. Egoísta, cierto. ¿Por qué no? ¿Por qué no habré de serlo? Si cuando aprieta el zapato, la suela ya no da. No, tú sabes lo que digo, ¿eh? Yo sé que tú sabes lo que yo digo. Cosas suceden en la ciudad. Qué cosa extraña, el mundo ya no da. Guardaré calma. Guardaré mis precauciones. Algo sí quiero que quede claro, señores. Todos los humanos algún día viviremos en armoniosa fraternidad.
Las horas pasan, los días cambian y se van. Busco tocar en la mente, pero no estás. Solo me queda un retrato, recuerdo de tu amor, que por la noche en la almohada duerme junto a mí. Y me pregunto llorando, ¿qué es lo que esperas de mí? Camino las calles pensando, ¿cuándo volverás? Y tu retrato en silencio parece decirme nunca más. Las horas pasan, los días cambian y se van. Busco tocar en la gente, pero tú no estás. Solo me queda un retrato, recuerdo de tu amor, que por la noche en la almohada duerme junto a mí.